Hello and thank you for joining us on Chasing the Dollar, brought to you by The Tab, where we have a huge race coming up at Wentworth Park this Saturday night. It is the Bob Payne Sprint Final. What a fantastic race it is too, Tim Newbold. You've got some work to do to pick a winner here.
Oh, you summed it up. It is a cracking race, Ben. It is probably one of the hardest races I think I've seen at Wentworth Park for a couple of years. You could make a case for 6, 7 or even 8 runners in the race. I don't know what they're going to do with the market. The bookmaker's on track and tab.com.au. It looks very, very tough. Hoover Boy was the quickest qualifier, but I can't see him starting favourite because he lacks genuine pace. It is a very interesting market and a great race.
Yeah, it certainly is. We'll get into Tim's tips and the analysis of that race in just a few moments when we get into the quaddie legs in Wentworth Park this Saturday night. But first of all, let's call in with the Tab. Here's Matt Jenkins.
Saturday night at Wentworth Park is the Bob Payne Sprint Final. Looking forward to seeing how Hoover Boy goes. Of course, a bit of an upset there last week against Bye Bye Bucks. Can it do it 2 weeks in a row? It's drawn the 4, and it was the fastest qualifier, so every chance it can. Mr. Clydesdale looked good too. And what about this bet? $6,000 at $3 last week. Got the cash. I know, Tim, you're a massive fan as well, but please, $6,000, you are getting paid too much. It's a big week. Plenty of meetings covered, 25 in total, so an ever-expanding coverage of the fixed odds greyhounds. And of course, on Saturday night, the Big Six, New South Wales Tab, $150,000 guaranteed, so definitely be having a crack at that.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. Now, there we go. $6,000, Mr. Clydesdale. Very, very confident you were last week. Something there.
Oh, somebody.
6,000.
Somebody, please. No, it wasn't me. I did back him. I thought he'd win, but I didn't put the $6,000 on. I can assure you of that, Benny.
All right, probably wouldn't be here if you did. Now, let's get into the first of the quaddie legs at Wentworth Park this Saturday night. A pretty tough race too, and some dogs going very, very well here.
Yeah, 2 of the hottest young pups in New South Wales in Zipping, Rocco and Dinkum really step up to the big stage. They're taking on a few of the more seasoned greyhounds, and I was settled on the old boy Fancy Dean. He walked out of the boxes last week, very unlike him. He dawdled out, but his run was still really, really good. Prior to that, his run was good from an unsuitable 8 alley. He's going as well as he's ever gone, I think, Fancy Dean, and he's got a good chance in this because Greyhound 3 Zipping Rocco has got high speed when he hits the ground, but he does want to duck a little wide at the first turn, so Fancy Dean should get every chance to burrow up on the rails at the first turn. He's got a moderate beginner on his inside, so he's going to be right there to pounce. On an each-way basis, he is a great bet. Number 2, Fancy Dean. Number 3, Zipping Rocco, as I mentioned, has got high speed and is really, really coming through the ranks. A fantastic win last week. He's unbeaten in 2 runs. He is racing a shade out of his grade, but he has got the X factor about him. He's a greyhound going places. 1 sucker punch. God bless him. He really helped us last week. He's beautifully drawn on the inside. He loves an inside alley. He's going to be right there at the end. And for the multiples, throw in Where's the Risk.
That takes us on to race number 6 on the program. This is a 4th grade race, and this one, well, it's not very easy either, Tim. There's plenty of chances across the track here.
Yeah, I like number 6, Cookie's Recipe for Dave Righetti. This greyhound has run 5:32 for an early section at Wentworth Park and led all of the way on that occasion, running 30 and 13 overall. Last time at when he was contesting the lead but got caught between runners and got checked out of it. She only needs to begin cleanly to roll to the lead here, and if she does, I think she can get the money. As I said, she can run around 30 and 1, 30 and 2, and that'll be enough to get away with this. I think she's got a terrific hope, Cookie's Recipe. 7, Desperata is beautifully drawn wider on the track. A good run when beaten in easier company last week, but she does come into contention from the wide alley. You've got to throw number 3, 10 in. This greyhound is dropping in grey from the Group 2 Bob Payne heats last week and is going enormous, but his issue, he lacks early pace, but really, really strong at the end. If he got the runs at the vital times, he'd be powering home and can be in the finish. But I like to be on a leader. I think it'll be Cookie's Recipe. Just get her to the front and keep rolling along.
We get on to race number 7 now. Coming from the inside in this race is Weldon Flash. It's only won 6 races out of 20 starts, but 5 of those have been its last 5 starts in a fantastic patch of form. Has drawn well here too. You give it some chance?
Look, he is airborne, but he's not all that well drawn because he does want to shift at the first turn. He does track wider in his races. He can be touchy at box rise, and he can't afford to be in this race because there's 3 or 4 greyhounds with pace which will be crashing toward the rail at the first turn. If he does miss it, I think he'll be in all sorts of trouble, Weldon Flash, and I'm steering away from him. I like number 5, Shoraz, the Derby winner, National Derby winner. He's dropping in grade from the Bob Payne heats last week. He's a touch awkwardly drawn in box 5, but if he does begin cleanly, he's got enough pace to posse up at the first turn, and if he can just get around there safely, he'll be very, very hard to beat. He's got a bit of strength on his side. He can run time. Number 5, Shoraz on top. 3, He's So Shy's going great guns at the moment. Placed behind Hoover Boy in the quickest time of the night last Saturday night. Really, really consistent greyhound. He's going to be competitive. 4, Thunder Lee has got the early pace to be in the firing line from the jump. And for your wider multiples, you've got to throw Weldon Flash in, but he does need luck. As I said, he will want to shift at that first turn, so he needs clear galloping room. Shoraz can lead or posse up close at the first turn, and I think he'll get the money.
And so we move on to the feature race of the evening. It is the Bob Payne Sprint Final, a Group 2 race worth $40,000 to the winner. It's $10,000 for second, $5,000 for third as well. So plenty of cash around for this Bob Payne Final, and it has turned into an absolutely outstanding race. There's class all over the track here. Mr. Clydesdale, well, we know you had a big earn there last week, but where are you going this week? Because, well, we saw a very impressive performance by Hoover Boy. There's also class all over the place with Bye-Bye Bucks and the like. How do you choose one?
You couldn't wish for a better field. As I said earlier on in the program, it is one of the hardest races I've seen at Wentworth Park. You can make a case for nearly every runner. I've settled on Bye-Bye Bucks. My old favourite. He's been very, very good to me. He can be a bit touchy at box rise, as we all know, but he's got that high burn. And sometimes when he's drawn in the middle to wider on the track, he cuts down hard at the first turn, and I can see him doing that if he does begin. If he can cut and run at the first turn and find the lead, I think he can get away with it, and he is going to be backable odds. His run last week on face value, probably a shade disappointing, some may say. He did get buffeted in the early stages, so there were a couple of excuses. But as I said, if he can begin, cut and run at the first turn, I think he can go very, very close. The value in the race is number 2, Street Boss. This greyhound ran a cracker when beaten last week, is well drawn nearer to the rails. Has got a moderate beginner in Hoover Boy drawn on his outside, and a very touchy beginner drawn on his inside. He should get clear galloping room in the initial stages. He'll be big odds, and he can run a huge race, Street Boss. You've got to throw number 4, Leeroy Rocker in. I was doubting his ability to run a strong 500 in top company last week. Well, he proved me wrong. He ran a cracking race, leading all the way, breaking 30 seconds at his first run at Wentworth Park, and he can only be improved by the run. And number 3, Hoover Boy, has got to be thrown in, the quickest qualifier, but there is so much pace in this race. He's probably going to be running 5th, 6th, 7th or 8th at the first turn, and I don't think he can run these dogs down if they're breaking 30 or around 29.8, 29.9 in the lead. He'll need plenty of luck, Hoover Boy, to get in the finish. I've ended up settling on Bye-Bye Bucks, but as I said, you can make a case for a number of runners.
All right, we get on to the best bets, and last week, Tim, we got up, which is a very good result because it had been a little bit of a dry spell, but maybe we're in some form now. Who we got this week?
Yeah, it had been a dry spell, and we're back in the game, Benny. Race 1, Greyhound 8, Lochinvar Blarney. This greyhound's run was fantastic behind Sucker Puncher, best bet last week from the 8 alley. There's no early pace drawn in this race, so he should be straight there at the first turn. He's got strength on his side. He's run 29.8 at Wentworth Park. He's just got to begin cleanly, posse up at the first turn. He'll blow them away. Race 1, number 8, Lochinvar Blarney.
Now, you have been finding some value for us. Who is it this week?
Race 5, number 2, Fancy Dean. He's coming up against a couple of young pups in Zipping Rocco and Dinkum, which will allow us to get a reasonable price. He's well drawn nearer to the inside, and as I said earlier, he is going as well as ever. Race 5, number 2, Fancy Dean at the value.
Well, it's a huge weekend at the tab. We've got 2 grand finals as well as the racing and plenty more. Matt Jenkins, take us through it.
Massive weekend of sport. NRL and AFL grand finals, of course, will start on Saturday. The Swannies are through. $34 before the start of round 1 this season. It's been a very good year. They're $2.75 and very well supported in the grand final against the Hawks. So there could be an upset brewing. The Hawks $1.45. Plenty of different markets available. The Norm Smith will prove the most popular betting option. Sam Mitchell's a favourite, but I can report good interest for Josh Kennedy, who was in contention for the Brownlow medal. He's at $8, and Ryan O'Keefe a $17 chance as well. For the NRL on Sunday at 5 o'clock, of course, betting live right throughout the day on New South Wales Cup, Toyota Cup, and then, of course, the grand final. Melbourne Storm, they went up as outsiders. They are now the favourites, and I tell you what, the punters are very keen on them to win this one into $1.75. The Dogs at $2.10. They've been favourites for quite some time, but now it's Melbourne expected to win that one, and I can report in the Clive Churchill medal, the big three from Melbourne, they're at the top of betting as well. Ben Barber in the mix, and he's a good chance to score that first try as well. On other fronts, of course, Star Stable open for registrations now. Go to starstable.com.au, but for all the latest markets, go to tab.com.au. Visit your local New South Wales or Victorian tab. Call us on 133 390.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. We'll talk to you next week. Now, Tim, how are we going to feel next week if we come along here and Mr. Clydesdale has taken it all out? You haven't tipped him in your top four. You followed him all through his career. You've left him out of the top four for this big one, the $40,000 race.
It just shows how hard the race is. I've got a love affair for Clydie. I've left him out. I hope he's not dirty on me or the trainer. But look, he's got a great chance of winning if he does begin cleanly. But you can't tip them all. And as I said, one of the hardest races I've seen at Weddy for a long time.
Especially after the result he gave you last week. Well, thanks for your time this week, Tim. We'll see you next time on Chasing the Dollar.